All right, President Biden has picked up a few political wins as the year rounds to a close. Yahoo Finance senior columnist Rick Newman has been compiling a list of those wins. Rick, take it away.
Hey. Yeah, so looking at the three most important political developments of 2022, including things that are going to be important going forward. So I think the most important thing to point out is that Joe Biden had a good year. He got two major bills through Congress on a nearly bipartisan basis. That was the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which is not about inflation. We always have to remind people it's about green energy. That was mostly with Democrats. But then he got the CHIPS Act, which had bipartisan support. This comes after he got the infrastructure bill, also a bipartisan bill through Congress last year. And I think you could fairly say that in 2 years, Biden has easily mounted 4 years worth of legislative accomplishments. I mean, if you go back to what Trump got done in his 4 years, really only one major bill, which was the tax cut bill of 2017. And that was just a Republican bill with no bipartisan support. So Biden has some momentum going into 2023. Now, interestingly, his approval rating hasn't gone up by very much. So you can scratch your head and say, but Democrats overperformed in the midterms, yet Biden's approval rating didn't go up very much. I'm not sure how to sort that out exactly, but I think that I think more people think that Democrats can actually get stuff done than thought that 2 years ago when Biden was first heading into office.
There was a lot of focus this year as well on the Supreme Court and some of the key decisions that they made going into 2023. Where is the general public kind of stacking up in terms of its own understanding around how the court operates, but also some of the other big cases that are still on the docket?
So I think the big thing that changed with the Supreme Court is that I think clearly more people think that it is now politicized in favor of the conservative majority. The Supreme Court is usually at least a small issue in elections because people care about who's going to be which party will appoint the next justice if there is an opening. I think that is now changing, that people care about policy issues that the Supreme Court is effectively determining. I mean, we saw that with the overturn of Roe v. Wade this year, which I think we have pretty good evidence that was a factor that helped Democrats in the 2022 midterm elections. There's no reason to think that will change by 2024 because the Roe overturn will still be in effect. Abortion bans will be in place in the half of the states that have put them in. We will actually see more evidence of the effects of those abortion bans in those states. There's also another important case coming up in 23. The Supreme Court is going to hear a case from North Carolina about whether state legislatures can have a much more powerful role in determining what happens in federal elections in those states. This gets back to what some state legislatures tried to do in 2020, overturning the popular vote in a few states. And that is going to be a big case going forward. Not clear how the Supreme Court will rule on that. But the Supreme Court, the whole nature of the Supreme Court, I think, has changed within the last couple of years.
If the president was a stock, Rick, do you think he's set up for disappointment next year? To your point, he has had a lot of good wins.
Well, if he's a stock, I think you could say he's undervalued. I mean, if you equate his approval rating with the price of the stock, I'm not sure how you would do it. Can Biden outperform in 2023-24? I think he can, because it's not going to be about legislative battles in the next 2 years. It's going to be about foreign policy. Biden has actually had a pretty good year on foreign policy, clearly asserting U.S. leadership with regard to the war in Ukraine. The United States is the absolute indispensable ally among all of Ukraine's other allies. Ukraine would not be surviving if it were not for U.S. leadership there. Most Americans approve of that. And Biden has a chance to sort of rise above regular politics next year. The other factor next year is whether the Republicans who are now going to control the House, if they're just going to become a chaos machine that can't stop fighting among themselves in order to get anything done. And the big issue there will be the debt ceiling, whether they get an extension of the debt ceiling or whether Republicans block it, which I think would just help Democrats.
Rick Newman, always good to see you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.